My alcohol addiction out of 28 years was 10 years. Um, and I know now that it was triggered because of, so I was self-medicating. And I was self-medicating just to cover and deal or not deal with the pains of some childhood abuse and some trauma that took place. Um, I started making really bad decisions. My parents divorced at the age of 10, and I made some poor choices, started sneaking out and hanging out with boys that were much older than I was, and drinking and smoking cigarettes, which was, as a 10-year-old, that's pretty stupid choices to be making, and was very naive to what older boys wanted. And at the age of 11, I was raped by a 16-year-old, and from that point went to live with my dad and stepmother.
When Stacy arrived, her stepmother began withholding food because she accused her of being overweight. So Stacy began eating out of the trash can and was led to steal from a convenience store. And when her father found out, that's when the beatings began. And it was a teacher at school who discovered something was wrong.
My dad had a heavy brown leather belt buckle, belt, the long belt, and the buckle was his solid brass Marine Corps belt buckle. And I was beaten morning and night, and I was not allowed to wear different clothes to school. I had to wear the same, that was the punishment. And so the weeks that followed from that, I was not able to dress out for PE because I could not walk. I was in, the pain was, um, it was the most horrific, excruciating pain that I have ever experienced in my life. You know, I had these little short gray running shorts um, for PE. And so as I'm walking, and middle schoolers, there's cliques. There's all these little circles of cliques. And literally, it's loud. You can hear all the kids laughing and cutting up and having fun. And as I'm walking, the silence scares me. I'm like, why are they all stopped talking as I'm walking by? And I have goosebumps just thinking about it again. And a few seconds later, minutes later, I continue to walk, and I stand at the line where I'm supposed to go run, wondering how I'm going to run because I can hardly walk. And um, this PE coach walks up to me and puts her arm around me. And she says, "It's going to be okay. Let's go inside." And the dean met me inside. The rest of that day, I have no recollection of, except for someone drove me home that night. And when we turned onto the street was lined with police cars.
Oh.
And so walking in the door, I had whoever it was that took me home went inside with me. And my dad saw me, jumped up, and started to run towards me and said, "This is all your fault."
Oh boy.
At that point, the police officers that were there, male and female, took me to my bedroom along with my stepmother. Okay, now my stepmother was a part of the abuse, the spankings, and as well as the food. But at this point in time, what was about to unfold, she gave me comfort that I needed, because I questioned why I didn't call her out when all this was being exposed. Why did I not call her out on this? She went to my bedroom with the police officers, and they had me drop my pants to my ankles, including my underwear, and I had to bend over and hold my ankles for them to take pictures of my entire backside.
Oh.
And at that point in time, she just kept saying, "I had no idea it was this bad. I had no idea it was this bad." A few weeks later, I was sent to live at a children's home in Georgia.
From unconditional love at the children's home, she left when she was 18 and she went to live with her father. And she felt like he owed her. So she started to rebel.
I started hanging around with people I shouldn't hang around with, and got pregnant early. I think I was 19 when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I had her when I was 20. and started just drinking. Prior to getting pregnant, I drank all the time. And when I got pregnant, I quit drinking, quit smoking. But as soon as she was born, I started right back up. And that that relationship turned into a marriage. In fact, I was, when you're looking to fill a void, you're looking in all the wrong places. And I went from one man after another, and was never faithful to anybody. I did that for 10 hard years, and drank myself to where I was sleeping in cars with my daughter, and literally had lied so much I didn't even know what the truth was anymore. And what I learned is you never bargain with God, because just a few years prior I had stood in a bar and I said that God was a male chauvinistic pig, and that if he was, well, I said if he was a God, if there was truly a God, because why would a God that can snap his fingers and do anything, or blink his eyes, or have a thought, do anything, allow me to go through what I had to go through? So I was very angry at God and wasn't even sure if there was a God. And I called him a male chauvinistic pig, told him I would never bow to him, ever.
Stacey was still in doubt, but God put her to the test. Her anger continued.
I don't know what happened, but I woke up in a rage. And that morning, I beat my daughter the way my dad used to beat me. And I threw my twin-size bed across the room. And I think I was at a breaking point, mental breakdown, because I was trying to make good decisions. She and I had gotten our own little apartment. I was trying to do better by her, trying not to drink as much. And I snapped that morning. And when I dropped her off, I told her, don't tell anybody what happened today. And I heard my dad. And that morning I went to Olive Baptist Church and talked to a lady. And the first thing, of course, she wanted to do was know if I knew the Lord. And I'm like, yeah. I didn't want to hear that. I don't even know why I was there. I just went there. And I know why I was there now, but then I didn't. And she told me about a recovery program called The Most Excellent Way. And The Most Excellent Way is a Christ-centered drug and alcohol program that helps people recover from addictions. And it doesn't mean drugs or alcohol. It could be pornography. It could be food. It could be anything, but it's geared towards drugs and alcohol. And that night I went to my first recovery meeting, and that's where I started hearing that I'm loved, that I am important. And that completely contradicted everything that I had been told, because my dad raised me that if I wasn't tall, thin, and beautiful, I would never be successful. I had to look a certain way. If you don't look a certain way, your boss is not going to respect you. He's not going to listen to you. If you don't look a certain way, you're not going to keep a husband. Everything you do and say is going to be based on how you look. Well, I am not a tall, thin, and beautiful woman. I'm a very hefty woman. And so all I have heard, is, you're not successful. You're never going to succeed. And so I was hearing for the first time that I am loved and that I am beautiful. And one of the ladies' meetings that I went to was on forgiveness. And the presenter for the meeting was doing her Bible study, and she said that in order for you to be forgiven, you have to forgive. And when she said that, every hair on my body stood up, every muscle tensed, and I just was fighting back the tears. And I'm like, no way, no way, no way. She continued. It was like a broken record player over and over. You have to forgive. You have to forgive. And finally, I just blurted it out. And I said, I would rather die and go to hell than to forgive what they've done to me. And the room went silent. But the pain was so raw and so raw in that moment that I knew I had to say it. And I meant it with I didn't know the Lord. What was I going to, you know what I mean? There, I don't have, if that's what I have to do to, to get saved, forget it. I didn't want it. And that night, a sweet, sweet lady, an elderly lady approached me, and she, you know, everyone was, oh, you have to do this. You have to do that. No, I don't. You don't know who you're talking to. No, you don't. But this sweet lady approached me, and it was how she came to me. She said, and she, her little crooked finger, I can still see it. She said, I know you don't want to hear it, but you have to do it. And she said, I'm praying for you. And that's all she said. And Most Excellent Way was helping me. And even though I didn't want to hear what they said that night, I continued to go because I wanted to be different than how I wanted to raise Kayla different than how I had been raised. And when I went back the following week, she walked up to me and she had a steno pad. And then that steno pad was prayer after prayer after prayer and scripture that she had claimed over my life that week. That was the beginning of forgiveness for me.
Romans 10:9 says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him out of the dead, you will be saved.
So I read it that first time and I said, okay, God, if you're real, if you're really real, then you're going to have to help me with this because I can't do this on my own. I'm going from a drunk and a homeless person and an abusive to my daughter and a manipulator, an adulterer. I mean, I was a harlot. I was bad. I'm going to go from that to this. And it's either all or nothing. I said, you know, my dad always said everybody in church is a hypocrite. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite. And so that was what I said was, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to be real. I want to be transparent. And I just want to be fake. And I said, so if you're really real, I'm going to do this for the third time, and I'm not going to do it with my head. I'm talking out loud like this. I'm going to do it with my heart, God. When I finished reading that prayer and those verses for the third time, I believe 2 Corinthians 5:17, because that was one of the verses that was in there, was that I am a new creation in Christ. The old is gone. I knew that second, I was no longer a whore. I was no longer an alcoholic. I was no longer a liar. I wasn't a thief. I wasn't anything. I was a new creation.
And you were born again.
Yes. I have goosebumps all over. And so that from that moment, before I could even get up, he reminded me of what I said in that bar. I will never bow to you. And he took me to my knees. And one of the most powerful moments for me at a Most Excellent Way meeting was the presenter was teaching, and she read Genesis 50:20. And when she said, what others meant evil against you, God means for good, for this present time,
Yes.
for helping other people.
Yes.
And I sat there in that metal chair. I know exactly where I was sitting. And I whispered in my head, I said, oh, you're going to use my hurt to help other people, aren't you? I got goosebumps. And he said, yes, I am.
Stacey's father accepted Christ before he passed. That was Stacey's prayer.